The medical bay of the Interstellar Research Station Prometheus hummed with the quiet rhythm of life support systems. Amy Chen had been lying in the cryogenic suspension pod for 7 months, her body healing from injuries that would have killed any other species. The doctors, a mix of human and allied alien physicians, had done everything they could. Now, it was just a matter of waiting. Patrick Morrison stood by her pod every day, his weathered hands pressed against the transparent surface. He was the station's chief of security, and Amy had been his protege, his best scout. The accident shouldn't have happened, but then again, nothing about first contact with the Valkyrie should have happened the way it did. The memory still burned in Patrick's mind. 7 months ago, they had discovered a crashed Valkyrie vessel on the ice moon of Tertius 9. The Valkyrie were apex predators, massive reptilian beings standing 12 feet tall when fully grown, with armored scales and razor-sharp claws. The galaxy feared them. Wars had been fought and lost against their empire, but Amy had found something else in that wreckage: a cub, barely 3 feet tall, whimpering beside its dead mother. Against all protocols, against Patrick's direct orders, she had approached it. The cub had been terrified, injured, dying from exposure to the moon's toxic atmosphere. "We can't leave it," Amy had said over the com, her voice breaking through the static. "It's just a baby." Patrick had tried to stop her. The Valkyrie would see any interference as an act of war, but Amy had already removed her emergency oxygen supply, wrapping the small creature in her thermal blanket. The cub's crystalline blood had been freezing in the sub-zero temperatures. She had carried it for 3 miles back to the shuttle, her own body temperature dropping dangerously low. By the time they returned to the station, Amy had collapsed. Severe hypothermia, frostbite, and neurological damage from oxygen deprivation. The doctors induced a coma to give her brain time to heal. They weren't sure she would ever wake up. The cub, whom Patrick had reluctantly named Scar, after the scar-like marking on its snout had survived, and it had grown. In 7 months, it had reached 9 feet in height, its scales hardening into the characteristic armor of an adult Valkyrie warrior. The station xenobiologists were astonished at the rapid development. Valkyrie juveniles apparently matured quickly when properly nourished. Scar had become a problem, not because it was violent. Surprisingly, it showed no aggression, but because it refused to leave the medical bay. It sat outside Amy's pod every single day, sometimes for 12 hours straight, watching her with those intelligent amber eyes. When security tried to remove it, Scar would emit a low, mournful sound that resonated through the entire station. "It's grieving," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's vet. "Valkyrie bond intensely with those who save them in their juvenile stage. It thinks of Amy as its parent." Patrick had grown used to sharing his vigil with the massive alien. At first he had kept his hand on his plasma pistol, ready for any sign of aggression, but over time he came to understand that Scar was just as worried about Amy as he was. On the 214th day of Amy's coma, something changed. Patrick was reviewing security reports when Scar suddenly stood up, its scales rattling, a Valkyrie sign of excitement. The creature pressed its enormous clawed hand against the pod, and for the first time in 7 months, it made a sound Patrick had never heard before, a chirping noise, almost like laughter. Then the alarms began to sound. Amy's neural activity was spiking. Her eyes were moving beneath her eyelids. Patrick dropped his datapad and rushed to the pod's control panel, his heart hammering in his chest. Dr. Tanaka came running, her medical team close behind. "She's waking up," the doctor shouted. "Begin revival protocol now." The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic mist. Amy's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. She tried to speak, but her voice came out as a raspy whisper. "Easy," Patrick said, taking her hand. "You're safe. You're on the station." Amy's eyes slowly focused on him, then drifted past him to the massive figure looming behind. Her eyes widened in terror. No, it's okay," Patrick said quickly. "That's Scar, the cub." "Amy, that's the cub you saved." Amy stared at the enormous Valkyrie warrior, her mind struggling to process the information. The creature that had been small enough to cradle in her arms was now a towering predator. But then Scar did something extraordinary. The massive alien lowered itself to the floor, making itself as small as possible. It crawled forward on its belly, the same way the cub had approached Amy 7 months ago in that frozen wreckage. When it reached her bedside, it gently placed its enormous head on the edge of her bed and made that soft chirping sound. Again recognition flooded Amy's eyes. You remember me." Scar's amber eyes closed, and it released a deep, rumbling purr. In Valkyrie culture, such a sound was reserved only for family, for those one would die to protect. Tears streamed down Amy's face as she reached out with a trembling hand and touched the scales on Scar's snout. The creature leaned into her touch, and the entire medical bay seemed to hold its breath. "I told you," Patrick said, his own voice thick with emotion. "Humans don't leave people behind, not even alien cubs." In the weeks that followed, Amy's recovery progressed rapidly. Scar never left her side, becoming her constant companion and, as the xenobiologist discovered, her translator. Through Scar, the station made contact with the Valkyrie Empire. The story of the human who had sacrificed herself to save a Valkyrie cub spread across the galaxy. The Valkyrie, a species known for their honor and loyalty, declared Amy Chen a clutch sister, the highest honor they could bestow on a non-Valkyrie. An entire battle fleet arrived at Prometheus, not for war, but to pay respects. And through it all, Scar remained by Amy's side, a living testament to a simple truth that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Humans might be weak, fragile creatures in a universe full of stronger species, but their capacity for compassion made them the most dangerous allies and the most formidable friends anyone could ever have. The cub had remembered, and the galaxy would never forget.